If I stop using anxiety, anger, insecurity, pressure, or the need to prove myself as fuel, will I lose the very thing that made me successful? Losing your edge, becoming vulnerable. These are two of the biggest sources of friction, pushback, hesitation that I encounter when I'm talking with prospective clients. Clients who externally, on paper, wildly successful, yet internally, they're suffering. They are going to battle with themselves every single day, towing the line of burnout, running on empty, and a mere decision or singular action away from emotional implosion. And that may be blowing up their business, their marriage, their relationship with a loved one. And I wonder if you've ever had a similar thought to that sentence I opened this episode with. And I want to share a story to dive in here today. A couple months ago, I was talking with a president of a massive company, and he had recently uprooted his family, moved across the country for what he thought was the opportunity of a lifetime. More money, more influence, more impact. And eventually, when he righted the ship, which he was known to do, thus why he was hired, there would be more validation, recognition. He'd be seen and respected in a way that he had not yet achieved. But when he arrived, he quickly realized that the role was not what had been promised. The company was in far worse shape than he'd been led to believe. The problems were bigger. The hours were longer. The pressure was relentless. And did I mention that not only did he uproot himself, his wife and his 2 young kids came along for the ride as well. And underneath this, essentially the scenario where he began to develop the story he felt he had been lied to, was a lot of anger. He felt angry at the people who sold him the opportunity. He felt angry at his wife for encouraging the move when every instinct in his body told him not to take the job. And he felt angry at himself for ignoring his gut. And that anger became his predominant fuel source. And guess what happened? Over the next nearly 24 months, he worked 7 days a week, 60, 70 hours a week. He made himself available to his team members, his peers around the clock. He convinced himself that it was his responsibility to fix everything. He began to use that anger as a fuel. And while candidly, business improved, quite drastically. Millions and millions of dollars more accrued since he had been on the job. But his personal life didn't improve. In fact, he was drinking almost every single night. And not a drink, multiple drinks to take the edge off, in his own words. He had become emotionally distant from his wife, disconnected from his children, exhausted, numb, running on fumes. And as our conversation continued, and we started talking about the need to address this anger, to process it, to sit with it, to accept it, to let it go, he looked at me and asked a question that I hear all of the time. But what if I lose my edge? His mind quickly spiraling that if I'm not using anger as a fuel source, how in the world am I going to keep up at this pace and fulfill the job and what has been asked of me? He was fearful he would let the entire company, his team members, even his family down if he let go of this potent, quick-burning, chaotic fuel source. Can you relate? That's what we're talking about today. Because so many ambitious, successful people, just like you, are terrified that if you let go of your primary fuel source, whether it be anxiety, anger, pressure, resentment, or the constant need to prove yourself, that you'll lose everything, the very thing that made you successful. And quick shout out to last week's episode. I did a full deep dive on that I need to prove myself pattern of believing, thinking, feeling, and behaving. You want to go back and listen to that. And I'm going to challenge you with this. What if the very thing, the very feeling, the very emotion you believe is necessary that gives you your edge actually isn't your edge? And what if you spent years confusing pain with power? And what if letting go of what's weighing you down doesn't make you weaker? What if it finally makes you dangerous for the right reasons? Welcome back to another episode of the Unstuck High Performer Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Salter. I'm here for you. I'm here to help you realize your potential, get out of your own way, so that you can do everything you dream to do. Live the life that you thought success would bring you, because I know deep down, one accomplishment after the next, you thought it would feel different, not so hollow, empty, overwhelming with anxiety, chaos, always on. You expected it would be different. You hoped it would be different. And I hope that through listening to each conversation twice a week, every Monday, every Thursday, and applying what it is I ask of you, what it is you learn, that you will finally feel as if you are living the life that success thought you would bring, aligned in your business, your personal life, your marriage, your parenting, and everything else that brings you joy, peace, and fulfillment in this world. Buckle up. You're getting a different version of me today. I typically record these episodes between 5 and 6 in the morning. I'm up early. Coffee's going, I'm reviewing my notes, and I'm diving right in. Today's a little different. It's actually 3:15 in the afternoon. I've had the workout. I took my son to the zoo. Man, for you parents out there, my son's 19 months old right now. And I feel the last 2 months in particular, the bond that him and I have developed, just the eye contact, the love, the laughter, the respect, the joy, the fun we have together. Oh man, it's indescribable. I get emotional thinking about it. I have so much fun with that boy. And I'm just so proud to be his dad. And I hope that you too experience what I am experiencing as it relates to fatherhood. Because it's a Monday as I record this. And aside from recording this episode, I took the whole day off to spend with him. Dropped him back off at his mom's a couple hours ago. Got an extra 2 days with him because of Father's Day yesterday. And just maximized it. Last week, took a random Tuesday off, pool day. Went to the beach. It's just, I'm so grateful that the universe put him into my life and helps me radically shift my priorities. Because I have an imagination, you right now desperately may want more time with your kids. Say you're working to have more time with your kids, your significant other. But you keep saying to yourself that after I do X, then I'll finally have the time to spend with them. Here's your fucking wake-up call to do it. Take the random Tuesday off. Book the trip. Don't return the phone call. Turn off your phone. Go spend time with your little ones. They're so precious. So precious. Another quick side note update. Someone on Instagram messaged me. Really love your show. Sad to see that you pivoted away from golf. You haven't said much about your golf journey lately. Did you stop playing? No, I haven't stopped playing. So quick update. Took 60 days off. Didn't play a single round for, I think it was literally almost 60 days to the tee. A lot of nasty injuries. Just a SI joint, hip, low back, glute, strained all of the intercostal muscles on the right side of my rib cage. Didn't play around. Eventually, after taking a few weeks of like totally not touching a club off, was doing some short game work in my garage into the net. Did a couple days where I played like 3 or 4 holes. And funny enough, I had a birdie each of those times. And then finally, just the last week, I played twice. I shot an 89, second best round I've ever scored. So that was exciting. And then shot a 42 on 9. So things are moving in the right direction. Most importantly, the body feels great. And that's a good thing because I have a lot of competitive golf ahead of me in July and August, a golf trip, a lot of networking events, relationship building with people I don't know on the golf course coming up. So the game needs to be dialed in. And I'm confident we're moving in that direction. Okay, let's hop back in. And again, I want to leave this question as kind of the core theme that we're discussing, working on, and building off of today. And it's a question I know in one way, shape, or form you have had internally in your own self-talk. If I stop using insert emotion, anger, anxiety, pressure, insecurity as fuel, and I start doing the deep work, becoming vulnerable, unlearning some of those bad habits, those what I refer to as destructive mindset programs, will I lose the thing that made me successful? Well, what I want you to remember is that the emotions you've been using as fuel may be creating acceleration, but they're also creating damage. And the goal in doing deep work, having someone candidly crack you open, begin peeling back the layers and helping facilitate the unlearning of the beliefs, feelings, and behaviors that are no longer serving you, that's not weakness. Vulnerability is strength. And in that process, the goal is not to lose your edge. The goal is to stop confusing pain with power and to shift to a far more sustainable fuel source. The highest performing individuals I've been fortunate enough to work with, they aren't fueled by anger, anxiety, resentment, or a need to prove themselves. They may have been at one time. Let me be very clear there. But that next level, finishing the summit of mountain number 1 and beginning the ascent of climbing your second mountain, that is a shift to a far more sustainable fuel source, one in which these individuals are now fueled by clarity, purpose, conviction, and choice. They haven't lost their edge. They've just finally stopped paying for it with their lives. And that's what I want for you too, to be able to operate from a place of clarity, purpose, and conviction, no longer unconsciously reacting, instead, consciously responding. And there's a quote that I love that's very applicable to this point, this part of the discussion. And that quote is, "An intelligent person is always learning. A wise person is always unlearning." I'm going to read it once more. An intelligent person is always learning. A wise person is always unlearning. And we can spin that in a way to be in alignment with what got you here won't get you there. You had to carry a unique set of tools in your backpack to climb to this point in the mountain. To climb to the next one, you're going to have to get rid of, unlearn, or let go of some of those tools to make space for the tools you will need to ascend to the next level. There's a lot of variations of this curiosity and concern of will I lose my edge that I've heard over the years. I'm scared to let go of X, anger, anxiety, because I don't know who I am without it. I'm scared I'll become soft. What if I lose my drive, my hunger, my edge? What if, perhaps scariest of all, what if I become average? Any of those sound familiar? If so, I have an imagination that you likely have a deep belief that your suffering, your enduring of this unsustainable, intense, chaotic fuel source is responsible for your success. Yet in reality, it's the thing that's slowly destroying you. And I've used this metaphor before, but I'll use it again because it's so applicable to this conversation. And in this case, you can insert whatever emotion most resonates with you, whatever emotion is fueling you. And in this case of the prospective client story I shared with you in the beginning, anger for him was like Nas in a fuel tank, in a race car, I should say. It creates this explosive acceleration. It absolutely works. You hit the button, the car surges forward at lightning speed, but you don't drive across the fucking country on Nas. It's designed for short bursts, not entire journeys. And the problem is that you are trying to build a life, a business, a marriage, a family, using a fuel source that is designed only for emergencies. Look, I'll be the first to acknowledge and praise, like, one of the central factors responsible for your success is your tenacity, your ambition, your work ethic. And the fuel source under that is likely a potent belief, I need to prove myself, or a potent emotion, anger, anxiety, insecurity, whatever it may be. There's a time to leverage that fuel source. You're having a down quarter and drastically all hands on deck, need to make next week's payroll. Your house, you're on the verge of foreclosure because you've put so much into your business and you've just got to come up with the cash. There are certain times, crunch times, if you will, where that urgency, that intensity is absolutely necessary. And I have an imagination, you've been there, you've been through multiple periods of life like that. So on the other side, you are typically an emotional fucking wreck. You're exhausted, you're overwhelmed, you're burnt out, you're depleted emotionally, physically, mentally. Because the fuel source that got you through isn't sustainable. And I come back to this all of the time. If you think of a sprinter, like an Olympic level sprinter, high intensity bursts for 9 seconds and change, 10 seconds in a 100-meter dash. They're not just sprinting for 364 days leading up to the big event, or 3.99 years leading up to the Olympic event. There are periods of intense training, and there are periods of rest, recover, lighter volume, lighter intensity. There's an undulation to it. But what I want you to really extract from that is there is something that sustains them, especially an Olympic athlete. For 4 years, multiple spurts of 4-year cycles to train and perform at these events. There's a love of the process, a love of the process, a love of progress. There's a joy, a sense of fulfillment, pride. It's bigger than him or her. They're not just angry for 4 years or only relying on anger for 4 years. Because eventually, for you or for a car trying to make it from Miami, Florida to Seattle, Washington, only using that high potent fuel source of NOS, the engine overheats. Parts wear down, systems fail, the ride becomes unstable, and guess what? They haven't even made it out of Miami. The car may move fast, but it is being destroyed while doing so. So it's worth clarifying that yes, the question isn't whether anger works. The question is whether you're willing to pay the price of using it forever. Because regardless of your fuel choice, it is important to understand that every fuel source creates byproducts. And emotional avoidance and running on these fumes of toxic, intense, chaotic fuel sources create toxic byproducts. So I want you to pause and reflect for a moment. If you are someone primarily reliant upon anger to move the needle in your business and your life, how has that influenced your marriage, your relationship with your children, your sleep, your health, your ability to relax? If you're primarily fueled by anxiety, how would you describe your ability to be present? How would you describe your ability to experience joy? And have you ever tasted a true, genuine moment of inner peace? Listen, emotion is literally energy in motion. Like, that's the derivative of the word. And every emotion creates pressure. The longer you continue to repress that emotion, the more likely you are to explode. So what I want you to really hear is that regulated, emotionally accepted people. We talked about this a few episodes ago when I did the Kobe Bryant framework for the transformation of emotionally reactive and avoidant to emotionally aware and emotionally accepting. Regulated and emotionally accepting people periodically release this pressure, where emotionally reactive and avoidant individuals clamp the lid tighter. And let me remind you, though it's not needed, I'm sure, that pressure doesn't disappear. It only builds. And eventually it leaks out as irritability, burnout, anxiety, resentment, disconnection, explosive anger, rage, and other intense reactions. And if this is speaking to you in your soul right now, let me remind you that another year of repeating the same pattern is significantly expensive, mentally, financially, physically, emotionally. And if you're ready to shift to a more sustainable fuel source, this is the exact type of work that I do with my clients. And I believe that private one-on-one coaching is the fastest path forward for you. And if this is the next step that you know is right for you, I encourage you to use the link in the show notes to apply for one-on-one private coaching. We've identified that you are currently using an unsustainable fuel source with toxic byproducts. And let me remind you that the goal is not to remove your edge in updating your fuel source. The goal is actually to remove what's dulling your edge, because when you release repressed emotion and you switch to a more sustainable fuel source, you create less internal resistance. So you can think of it like this. Imagine driving with the parking brake partially engaged. Yes, you can still move. You can even move somewhat fast. But the engine works harder. The vehicle burns more fuel. The parts wear down faster, and that annoying fucking beeping sound gets louder and louder. Everything becomes more difficult than it needs to be. Unprocessed anger, resentment, regret, shame, pressure, they are the parking brake. You've adapted that to them so completely that you think they're helping you move. You think these toxic fuel sources are your edge, but you don't realize how much energy they're costing you. But when you release them, candidly, nothing magical happens except you stop going to war with yourself. And now the same engine produces more output with less effort. Or put another way, there's an abundance of more energy left over to pour into your wife, your husband, your children. And this is the goal. More clarity, more ease, more flow, more alignment, more peace. I talk to prospective clients about this all the time. Like, what got you here won't get you there. Your tenacity, your ambition, your work ethic are incredible. We don't ever want to lose or get rid of those. But if you can imagine a big central dashboard with all of these dials that can be set between 0 and 100 for all of your, patterns, your beliefs, your emotions, we just need to recalibrate. And we need to really understand when and how to recalibrate on demand for whatever the particular challenge is, environment is, or the season of life is. I want to challenge you to begin thinking differently about your edge. What if your edge, that competitive advantage, wasn't anger, anxiety, insecurity? What if all along your edge has been your discipline, your standards, your resiliency, your courage, your willingness to do hard things? And anger or anxiety simply hitched a ride. And as a result, your continued costly decisions to repress and avoid this emotion, they robbed you of the energy to continue to do these things. And again, we're not taking away the engine, we're removing the drag. Like there's a lightness, there's an ease, there's a freedom, there's space to truly experience life again, to go further and inevitably to go faster when you shift to a more sustainable fuel source. And I come back to that quote I shared earlier that an intelligent man is always learning, a wise man is always unlearning. Listen, especially during your young childhood years and into teenage years, and if you've ever had a traumatic, challenging, catastrophic moment, you're learning emotions, beliefs, and behaviors to get needs met, to protect you, to cope, to get by. And those beliefs and behaviors, they protect you, they help you in that moment, but you outgrow them. There becomes a point where you don't need them, or they become destructive. They hold you back. They fuel sabotaging beliefs, behaviors, and more. And it's time to get rid of them. And as I wrap up today's conversation, I want to leave you with this, because I hope that there's one thing you will take away from this episode. Your edge was never the anger. It wasn't the anxiety, the pressure, the insecurity. Those things may have helped create acceleration. They may have gotten you through difficult seasons. Again, just seasons. But they were never the source of your greatness. Your edge is your discipline, your courage, your willingness to do hard things when most people won't. The emotions you've been carrying with you aren't giving you an advantage anymore. They're creating drag. And the longer you hold on to them, the more energy they require to maintain. So instead of asking yourself, as you're contemplating going inward, doing the deep work to shine a bright light on your blind spots, to learn when, why, and how you're getting in your own way and what to do about it, instead of asking, what if I lose my edge? Ask yourself, what might be possible if I stopped carrying everything that's masking my edge? Because the goal isn't to become less driven, to lose your hunger or your drive. The goal is to become free. Free to perform at a high level, at your potential, without paying for it with your health, your marriage, your peace, your presence, or your joy. And when you finally make that shift, you don't lose your edge. You discover what you're truly capable of when pain is no longer the thing behind the steering wheel. I hope today's message hit you in the way it needed to wake you up, to inspire you, to move you to take action. And if that action is getting someone in your corner to push you to look inward, to shine a bright light on the blind spots, the outdated beliefs, programs, patterns, and behaviors holding you back, again, private coaching may be the fastest path forward. And if there's a part of you that's been lit up by this conversation, trust that, act upon that. Visit the link in the show notes to apply for one-on-one coaching. And as always, I ask you, share this conversation with somebody in your circle who needs to hear it. And if this podcast continues to be a source of value, you find yourself coming back every week, whether it be for the solo episodes Monday or the phenomenal guests I get to sit down and converse with on Thursdays, I ask you to simply take 30 seconds and leave a genuine rating and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to today's show. Thank you again for listening. Make today great, and I'll catch you in the next episode.